adore them lads. I have unbelievable time for them, but they're a great bunch, but it's not acceptable.
They like to play the hard man when they're on it. It's not very pleasant when you're trying to manage a team. All you're looking for is a bit of civility and a bit of decency, but they just miss you like you know, you have nothing to do with the bloody occasion.
20-9. Aisling, Will, good morning to you.
Morning, lads.
Morning, folks.
Tommy has just made a note here in our production document to say I've butchered the entire league system, to be fair. He's not wrong.
Yeah, this whole thing is an absolute disgrace.
I didn't realise that we're actually not starting afresh come championship.
No, I think we should, Aisling. I think it's the fairest thing to do.
Oh my God, yeah, I definitely, it's a whitewash for me as well. I have not been successful at all, so I would be happily to restart for championship, please.
I'm contractually obliged,
As I
think.
recall,
Go on,
Adrian,
Will, yeah.
when this went to pot a couple of years ago, we just started adding bonus points and we started adding points for correct predictions and stuff. So
well,
it'll align
you say
itself
went
somehow.
to pot, Will. I say I was in a absolutely uncatchable lead, and then the lads just decided that wasn't going to make enough. That wasn't going to be entertaining enough, so they had to change the rules, and I ended up getting beaten, and that's what happened there. Now, I'm contractually obliged, I think, to mention last week's results. Do we have we something to look at? Hopefully, we do. That's the overall standings. At least that's not so bad, and its own. Even with the paltry 59%.
Yeah, well, I think I only got two correct predictions last week out of whatever it was, 8 or something like that. So my average has come down considerably.
It feels like that there's been a lot of rogue results. Is that me sort of
no, I'd say it's probably
being kind to my 37% there?
We just have no clue, to be honest. We're a bunch of clowns. We don't know anything. I think that's probably closer to the.
I think that's a good way to set up this item. Right, let's have a look at what we've got lined up for you this week. We're going to start with Cork Galway, Division 1A, Páirc Keeve, and it is Cork across the board. I mean,
like, these are always images that precede unfortunate events. These whitewashes.
A part of mine was like listening to Will O'Callaghan on yesterday's AM, and there was no other way to go, Will, after listening to your Sermon on the Mount on behalf of the good people of Cork.
Yeah, don't back down, double down. If you're going to go with them and say that they're in form, it would have been very silly if I turned around and went, hey, Cork have been so impressive in their first 3 games, but Galway are going to go to Páirc Keeve and beat them. Yeah, I mean, this is game of the weekend in Division 1A, with no disrespect to Clare and Limerick, which we'll probably talk about in a few moments' time as well. But Galway have to show a little bit of a response from the way that they played against Wexford last week, which is a bit disappointing on the back of having to gone to the Gaelic grounds and won just before the break, while Cork are the latest team to go and beat Limerick at home in the league so far this year. For Cork, there's an incentive to basically book themselves into the league semi-finals if they were to beat Galway this week at Páirc Keeve, and they'll want to show that they can back up particularly the first half performance that they put in against Limerick last time out. So I think Cork are just motoring a little bit better than Galway at the moment, but welcome along all of you to Galway supporters tweeting you if Galway win at Páirc Keeve this weekend, because I've been enduring this for a few weeks now.
Like, I guess it'll be just a double whammy, because you're in the hurling power rankings sort of crosshairs as well, Will. But like, I think there's reason. Like, I mean, we're not just all. It's not just a coincidence that this show has like gone all of Cork. I think that there's real tangibles, and then there's also the intangibles of Cork not having won the league, I think now for 24 years at this point. There's like a real incentive for them to actually be like, okay, well, we might not get our hands on the All Ireland. We have to start somewhere. If there's going to be a red wave coming, there might not be a bad place to start in the National League over the next little while. So I think that they're really gunning for this at the moment. Like, obviously there's been a lot spoken on the hurling pod and elsewhere as well about Mark Coleman and him slotting into centre back this year, which has been the most important position for Cork, certainly when they were picking through the wreckage of last year's All-Ireland hurling final. And then you look at the Galway side of things, and while they are going well, and they make a couple of like encouraging changes this week, like it'll be good to see Conor Whelan in the attack. They do have the likes of Gavin Lee, who's coming into start, who was playing for Presentation Athenry just on Monday night. So they're trying out youth. There's certainly a bit more of an experimental feel to Galway at the moment than there is to Cork, who look like that they're going out to win this entire thing. Did
you agonise, Aisling, or was it clear enough for you?
Yeah, it was a bit of a tough one. I think Cork, they started like a train, 3 wins out of 3. I think last week's performance was probably the really dominant performance when they bet Limerick. And that was just 6 months, after that All-Ireland, and 16 points they lost that day. So Galway, on the other hand, then I just saw, they'll be disappointed after being beaten by Wexford, but they're a team that are on the rise at the minute. And just listening to Henry Shefflin speaking after the game, he was saying that people might have got carried away a bit with their first 2 performances, but then after Sunday, they know where they're at now. They know what work they need to do, and it's no harm to be losing games. I don't think in the league, you're going to learn a lot. You're going to work on things for championship. It can only be positive. So I do think it's going to be seriously close, but I think Cork, with the form they're in at the minute, Páirc Uí Chaoimh, I just think, they're going to edge it.
Okay. I think I heard Henry behind you there, Will. What's his name? What's the dog?
Tank, yeah.
Tank.
Would you believe, right? I've hidden every single toy that makes the squeaky noise, and somehow in the time that my back has been turned to go on to chat to you guys, he's managed to find the squeaky.
Well, it was just when you made that point about Cork,
I
I think he was like, listen, well, come on.
I think he was like, Conor Whelan's back. Don't be underestimating Galway this weekend.
Do you know what we do? If there's another wash out this week, we'd be better off getting Hank the Tank and 2 balls and put food in each of those and just teeing it up with the other way, Paul the Octopus style.
You can take my spot.
Don't rule this content out, Owen.
That would be good, actually. I would actually genuinely watch that.
Dublin Kilkenny 1B, Parnell Park. Let's have a look, and it's Dublin across the. I'm really surprised, I have to say, on both of these that we've both all gone in. And I
down a Kilkenny win right now.
Well, that's exactly the point. That I think maybe with both of these games, you're not going to be overly astonished with if it swings the other way. To be honest with you, I'd written Kilkenny down, and I thought, I actually thought that's too obvious and it's too easy. And given the basis of what happened last weekend, that surely, this is a better indicator of where this Dublin team are at, Aisling, and that. Win in Tipperary as well, it must be said, is a good recommendation.
Oh, massive, yeah. Dublin are definitely a team from the last 2 years that I've been really impressed with. They're really exciting players, look like a team that's very much been developing, trying to find their style, and I think things are just clicking for them at the moment, and they're definitely on the way up. An unbeaten start, 2 wins, a draw, and as you said, getting that win in Semple Stadium last weekend, they're going to take a lot of confidence from that. On the other hand, you have Kilkenny, who had no trouble against Laois to get back on track. They had a 1-point defeat then to Tipperary the previous week. And I think you can never write off Kilkenny. They're always finding their feet, getting more and more players back into the team. And I think Brian Cody, he was speaking as well after the game, and he just said, they're a team they want to try and settle and form a team coming up to championship. So that threw me a little bit, thinking, okay, they might be they might edge this one, but then I was thinking Parnell Park, the form Dublin are in. So I do think it's going to be extremely close. It was a tough one. I went back and forth, but in the end I went for Dublin just about.
Yeah, Saturday nights under lights. I don't have quite lights at 5 o'clock. Well, is
performance, Adrian?
Go again.
For this one, so there's 2 very different form lines for this one. Kilkenny have won the 2 games that they would have been expected to win in Division 1B. So they got over the line against Antrim, and they kind of pulled away a little bit, despite the fact they finished the game with 14 men against Laois last time out. So they're 2 games they would have expected. They kind of got edged out against a Tipperary team where both sides are very clearly in transition and trying to change what they're doing. This is the most difficult game they've had in the league so far, is going to a Dublin team on the back of what they did at Semple Stadium last week, where I thought they put a really good defensive performance in and had a really good defensive shape. With the exception of Jake Morris, who played really well for Tipperary, they kept some key players quiet, including Jason Ford for Tipperary last week. Dublin have got this interesting formation out of the ball when they don't have the ball as well, particularly in opposition puckouts, where they go in a straight line. They create almost an eye, and then the idea is once they get the ball, they spread it out into wide positions, and there's loads of space for players to run into. They've hit the season running. They've put in some really good results so far and some very good performances. And as a result, I think you got it back where Dublin are at this stage in the league compared to Kilkenny. As much as people say Kilkenny are in the long grass and all that kind of stuff. Also with Kilkenny, they're probably going to have their 2-star young players from Ballyhale Shamrocks back for this week in Cody and Mullen. But we know that TJ Reid is still away. So Kilkenny are a few weeks before they get back, I think, to full tilt again. And as a result, I'm back in Dublin to winning consecutive weeks here.
Frank the Tank is not disagreeing with that.
What's he got?
He's all over it. He hears Dublin, he's loving it.
There could be a situation, Adrian, where in a little while people will just love to get one over the Dublin hurlers as well as the Dublin footballers. It'll be a sense of retribution for all the havoc that this Dublin hurling team is going to cause this year. They were excellent last week, even though I think a lot of us thought that their win was going to come to an end. So all of a sudden, in the space of one game, I'm certainly gone from thinking that this is maybe early season, not an early season flash, and I think it's actually going to be something far more sustainable. I think that there's a chance that this thing is like a day low level of a blue wave coming in this Dublin team over the next little while. We'll see what happens this summer, obviously, before we get that. But even when you're looking at sort of like tangibles, obviously playing in Parnell Park is going to be a big thing. Owen O'Donnell last week was really good on Shamie Callanan, and I think whoever he's going to be on this week is probably going to be in for a tough enough evening. So that's probably a couple of the things that you'll be looking at for Dublin this week. But I'm looking at all of us just going for Cork and for Dublin, and given that we got 2 out of 10 or 2 out of 8 last week at best, this is going to be a very, very tough weekend. Stay off Twitter.
Most of my picks were based on the fact that I thought you schmucks were all going to go a different direction. So that's I'm very disappointed now. And actually, listen to Will, I nearly want to change my pick because I thought, Will, despite picking Dublin, most of your recommendation there was for Kilkenny, to be honest with you. But reading between the lines, we'll see how it all pans out. And Owen, I have to say, in fairness to yourself, like there's nothing worse than if you've backed a team. You don't need to, if it turns out to be the wrong call, then the right thing to do is what you're doing, and jump ship, get behind the new cause.
Yeah. Sorry, I don't know what the reference is there, but
it's
always
I
endorse that message.
It's always reference to Kildare football somewhere along the line. Right, moving on. Clare Limerick, Ennis 1:45 start on Sunday. Limerick across the board. Well, we've got one standout here with Owen is going for Clare, so lead the way.
Look, I mean, I know why people have gone for Limerick. I mean, they have played each other already this year. Limerick won by 9 points. I think that game was in Cusack Park as well. And you did have Brian Lohan coming out after the game, and he was saying they're certainly not going backwards in their professionalism, the quality of players that they have, great resources. Most hurling people will accept that they are the standard at the moment. There was almost a resignation to Lohan's comments after getting beaten by 9 points against the same opposition just at the end of January, I think it was. So have things narrowed enough between then and now? We'll find out this weekend. But I just think, like we've been backing against the Dubs over the last little while, you back against a team that are out of form. And I know that if you're looking for form teams at the moment, you're looking at you're looking at Cork and Dublin, you're not necessarily looking at Clare. But I think Limerick have been out of sorts so far. It doesn't matter. It's not going to matter come the summer, but it's going to matter for this weekend, I think. And I think that if we're picking on form and we're picking on home advantage, two things that are very important at this time of year, I think Clare are going to win. So it's a simplistic enough rationale.
Another argument I've listened to, and I feel as if you're making the opposite recommendation. But we'll see. I mean, look, I take the point. Martin Story was making the same point this week that the league means absolutely nothing to Limerick. It's about finding a few new players, and it's not Aisling essentially a Dublin style slide here.
Yeah, but it has to mean something in terms of getting a bit of momentum, starting something. Like they have no wins whatsoever, like seriously struggling. So you have to build some sort of momentum. So I don't believe that it doesn't matter whatsoever. But I thought last week that definitely that was going to be their first win. My prediction was way off. And then they lost to Galway before that. So they just look so disjointed at the minute. Things just haven't clicked. A lot of wides last week. But I have gone for them this week. And I nearly was on the same boat as Owen. I did put down Clare and then I changed my mind last minute because I just thought, they have to pull things together here. They have to pull something out of the bag. Clare, on the other hand, they have a little bit of a mixed start. They're beaten by Wexford. But then I did think they impressed then against Offaly. So a close call, but I do think that Limerick will edge this win because I feel they actually have to get a performance.
You're all aboard. They're going to come right, Will.
Yeah, look, Jesus Christ went into a desert for 40 days. Limerick have got 40 days to get ready to play Cork in the Championship. That's where we're at this stage. You can almost park everything that's happened so far to Limerick, the 2 defeats, all the talk around the red cards and whether they're now being punished by referees for hand passes and what the kind of edge that was about Limerick in the last couple of years that maybe wasn't punished before. Park all that to one side. Limerick kick things off in Ennis this weekend with the win. They probably beat Offaly the week afterwards, and people quickly forget, a bit like last year, that Limerick failed to win the first 3 games in the league. If Limerick lose this weekend against a Clare team who've shown very little in the league so far, then you start to get concerned with Cork's form and just over a month to get ready for that first meeting in the Munster Championship. That's the difference to last year, is the really quick turnaround between the league and Championship. I don't think you can afford to sleepwalk out of the league in the same way that you could have done last year. Unlike Dublin, if you're going to use the direct comparison, Limerick don't really have the concern about relegation that Dublin have currently, where Dublin now need results to stay in Division 1 the league. Like, even if Limerick were to lose every game, and if the unthinkable were to happen and they were to lose to Offaly, which isn't going to happen in a couple of weeks' time, they'd probably still win the relegation playoff against a team from the other side. That danger just isn't there in Division 1 of the hurling league by comparison. And I think there is definitely going to be a kickback from Limerick. The big thing about last week was that Limerick won the second half against Cork, despite being absolutely dominated in the first half. And I wouldn't agree with Ash's take on Clare either. I think Clare took 50 minutes or so to get going against Offaly in Tullamore. It was a draw game at half-time. They were 1 point down after 50 minutes. Tony Kelly got going and they managed to beat the weakest team in Division 1 of the league so far. I'm not sure about what we've seen from Clare. I thought they were very poor in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in the opening round of the league as well. And that sets it up perfectly for Limerick to get the first of probably what will be a couple of wins before they come out of the league.
What was he doing in the desert for 40 days? Was there
Trying to get out of the desert.
Trying to avoid the devil, as far as I
really?
recall.
Yeah.
Why did he go in there in the first place? Was it to was there like a
Heavy night.
Was it? Bit of, was it? He went in around now. Is that what we're celebrating at the minute?
But like, I'm just trying to wonder. So, if Limerick managed to win a game while depriving themselves of food and water, and Clare at the receiving end of it, it would.
It's basically what Tyrone did last year with the COVID situation.
They were definitely in the desert for a long time. Yeah.
Waterford, Waterford, Tipperary, Welsh Park, 1:15 on Sunday, and now at last we have a bit of a split here. Aisling, Owen and Will are all taking the obvious route. Waterford and myself and Tommy are going out on a limb here with Tipperary. And to be honest, it's definitely another one that I had one answer written down and then I saw it went a different way. And like, I do get the Waterford thing. There's the Liam Cal factor. He knows plenty of these players. And I know that, to be fair, Will, to you, you've been beating the Antrim drum over the last while. So maybe I'm reading too much into the fact that they only managed to scrape through in Antrim. Was it last weekend or the weekend before that they only just managed to get there? And there's a little bit of me that's feeling that this Tipperary team again need to come good at some point. Maybe I'm putting too much stock in that, but you're in on Waterford.
Yeah, this is El Cahlico, as it's been called on social media by some people, the derby with Liam. But yeah, look, again, I think we're going to have his decision to stay in Waterford justified based on the way the season's been going so far. I think Waterford, look, they experimented a little bit last week and they hurled a little bit within themselves against Antrim, it would appear. That happened against Westmeath in the league last year. Either side is some good performances from Waterford. So I wouldn't read too much into the fact that Antrim pushed them, because you've already alluded to the fact that Antrim gave Kilkenny a good rattle. They were very close to Dublin at Corrigan Park, and then they were a penalty save being tipped over the crossbar away from getting a shock result against Waterford last weekend. So Antrim's form has been decent so far, so I wouldn't be saying, right, well, how can Waterford need to just about get over the line against them? I think Waterford at home, particularly this weekend, the way that they've been going so far in the league, which has been very impressive. Last time they played in Walsh Park, they put 7 goals past Laois, so they've got loads of firepower. Didn't see a whole lot from Tipperary in the performance last week against Dublin. Maybe there's going to be a response from them, but based on what we've seen so far, I have to go for Waterford here, and probably Waterford by a few points this weekend. I hope this isn't a clip of me that's like that account that's tweets that precede things that happen, and Tipperary go in and put in a really good display this weekend, but I just think the Daesh are going to win.
Aisling, you're also going with the obvious selection.
Yeah, I went with Waterford. Remained unbeaten, as Will said. That Sean O'Brien penalty save, that would have been a massive win for Antrim, and I'm definitely on the same boat as Will with Antrim. They're a really impressive team at the minute, but for Waterford, yeah, they've just been really impressive this year. Brilliant game against Laois as well. When then Tipperary, I think they've had a bit of a mixed start, a narrow 1 point loss against Dublin, I think it was, and then they went on and bet Kilkenny. So I do think there's very little between them, and I went back and forth on this for quite a while, but yeah, I just think with Walsh Park again, taking that into account, that Waterford are going to edge it.
We'll wrap up on the football. This is one of the games that was delayed a few weeks ago, Sligo Cavan, if I'm right, and is back on the agenda now. And this is definitely one. When you look at these predictions, there's only one way that's going to go. Everybody's gone for Cavan, Aisling on, Tommy and Will, and there's one outlier who's gone for Sligo, which is myself. And
why?
I've already outlined the reason.
Why, Adrian?
Well, the main reason was, and this is, I'm repeating myself from a couple of weeks ago, and I appreciate there's been some results in the meantime that might sort of dictate a shift away in this theory, but basically what happened was we've two Sligo natives, Gaelic sports experts around the office in Cahill and Arthur, and I asked their opinion a couple of weeks back as to which way this game was going to go, and they both sneeringly said, it has to be Cavan. So that right there and then, there was no way I could move off the fact that it's definitely going to be Sligo. But all sense, says Cavan, Aisling.
Yeah, I just couldn't look by them, and not at the minute. They bet Wexford by 7 points. They bet Carlow. Look like they're just finding their form. I think it will be probably one of their toughest games yet in Division 4. But I do think they'll get over the line by maybe 3 or 4 points or so. They need to keep on track for that promotion. The likes of Grove McKiernan's playing great stuff for them at the minute. And yeah, they just look like they're trying to get things together. Things are forming and happening for them. Sligo, on the other hand, they bet Wexford by 2 points. They bet Carlow comfortably. They lost a tip by 5 points, which was a bit of a setback for them. But I think the Cavan have to have too much here, and Cavan have to start getting those big performances now that they should be getting in Division 4, to be honest.
All right. That is thanks a million, folks. That's the quick picks.